So, how do you guys feel? This is it. This is the last thing you're going to be doing before it has opened, actually. So, how do you feel? Are you relaxed or slightly nervous?
I've gone the other side of it all. You just want to. It's out there now. There's nothing you can do. You've done all the work, and yeah, I just want to go home, man.
Just one more.
Nothing against you, lot.
39 minutes and 20 seconds to go, and you can go. Olivia, how do you feel now that the movie's just opened?
Yeah, fine, thanks. A little nervous that people go and people like it.
Yeah, but they have. You guys like it, right? Yeah. There you go. There's an old cliche that all actors really want to direct, but that's obviously very, very true of you. I mean, how long have you wanted to direct, and how long has it been on your radar?
Well, for a long time, over 10 years really, because when I left university, I started making short films of my own, and I only really got into any acting because Shane put me in Romeo Brass.
Yeah.
And I'd known him since I was about 17 years old, and he just put me in that film because, I amused him, and it was the only effective way he could torture me by giving me a really crap hairdo and that. And then I did another film called Last Resort, and then, it was a sort of a different character, and all of a sudden I was an actor, and yeah, so I've been getting on with that for a bit. But no, there was just I don't think acting was ever enough. I think there was always a will to want to tell my own stories, and I think over the years as an actor, I've collaborated on other people's films, and that's within that collaboration, though, I think your voice gets lost a bit. So I always felt this need to have my own expression, and that's why I took myself away and wrote Tyrannosaur.
Is there a reason why you waited so long? I mean, you made a lot of films in the interim.
It's just timing. It's all timing. I was doing a film in Spain. I wasn't having a great time on it. It was a terrible performance, and in fact, it wasn't a performance. And but I was working with Gary Oldman on it, and I was really frustrated about it all. And really realised then, that the chops weren't there for that kind of thing, for the jobbing actor stuff, And so just one afternoon, I wrote a short film. And in the hotel, and the next day I took it to Gary and just said, have a read of this. I wrote it yesterday, just be brutally honest about it. And he read it, and he said, if I didn't live in America, I'd produce this. So, it was a good enough response, and he said, asked me how I wanted.
It's alright.
Yeah. And he asked me how I wanted for the lead, And I said, well, I'd said before, I had Gary Oldman standing in front of me. And I went, oh, you're not right for the role, Of course I'm not fucking right. And then he says, who do you want for it? I said, Peter Mullen. Perfect. And that was it,
Fantastic.
And he's just been a sounding board. So we made the short film, Dog All Together, and this is the tale of it all, and then it came out. And when I made Dog All Together, all I wanted to do, I didn't worry too much about the aesthetics of making a movie. I just wanted to tell a story in 15 minutes, and just see if I could tell a narrative in that period of time, make anybody care about this character. And it got a good response, and we got a couple of awards here and there for it. And then a lot of people were asking me, well, what happens now then, like to the characters? And I realised that Dog All Together was the beginning of a bigger film. So I just carried on writing from the point the short film ended, which was when he'd just been attacked and sits outside the charity shop.
Yeah.
And I just took myself away and started from that point, and it just kind of exploded from there, really.
Absolutely. Olivia, were you one of those people asking what happens next? Because you were obviously in Dog All Together for one scene, one day really you did in that short film, isn't that right?
Yes, one day in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Well, no, because the next thing I heard was Paddy was going to make a different short film that followed Hannah's story a bit. So that's what I'd heard, and then when Paddy, when everyone was asking what happened next, and then he wrote Tyrannosaur, so that's when Hannah's short didn't happen, because it all gets explained in the feature.
And how organic was the process for you, Paddy, writing this movie? Because you sat down, there was that talk about writing the second short film, like Olivia just said, about Hannah.
Yeah.
How did that then mutate into this film?
Well, I don't even know where this short film is that I wrote for it. I just thought I'm going to write one about this character, and I don't know where it is anymore. It's probably on an old laptop. Have you got it?
Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
You better give it me now.
Is that on the DVD, do you think, or do you want to keep that one in the drawer?
But it's kind of not what happens in Tyrannosaur, strangely enough. There's elements of it, but I just got lost, and I just wrote this story, and it just came out very quickly, you know. I wrote it in a week, you know. I just took myself away for a few hours every day and wrote, and it just spewed out. And I think there was a lot of things in there that were very pent up.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of expression in Tyrannosaur, really. And a lot of things, I guess, that subconsciously were in you that you weren't so sort of aware of, you know. And I was lucky enough to write it because over the years I got to know Olivia more, you know, and she became a friend. So when I wrote the script, I just had her face in mind, you know, for the visual of Hannah, and the role was always hers. There was no doubt about it. You know, it wasn't about the tougher stuff in the film. You know, that's something you can get to. You can work into that state on the film. You know, you can get that trust and get into that heightened place.
Yeah.
It's more like when you first meet her, you have to believe that you're seeing the same thing that he is. To me, he keeps going back because he's just attracted by this light that even he can't really understand. Why he keeps having to go back and be in her presence. So that's why he kind of prods and torments her to kind of test her almost, you know. And that probably stems out of when I used to stare at my wife through a shop window when I was outside like a weirdo, watching her.
You know, all's well that ends well, though, right?
Yeah, man. Well, 20 years later, we're all right. She's not dead.
Can't say further than that. You told me that you actually, on the set of that film, you wanted to hold the door open for Paddy, just so he'd think you were a great person, so he'd cast you in anything you might do in the future.
Well, I didn't mean to do that on purpose, but I was so excited that Paddy Constantine was coming. It was the first rehearsal, and ever since then I'm very grateful that I'm not very cool. So Paddy was on his way, and I was sort of jumping from foot to foot, couldn't wait. And then and he came over, and I opened the door for him and grinned, and I'm a big old gummy grin. Luckily that he didn't mind that I was incredibly uncool, and it worked in my favour. Was
that the moment, Paddy?
Yeah, it wasn't as silly as Olivia says. You know, she didn't look dumb to me. I thought instantly. I thought I can't even explain it.
Yeah,
it was just a gut instinct. And all through rehearsal, I didn't stare at her unnervingly, but I just kept thinking, you know, she has this quality. She's easy to love, and she's a pretty selfless gal, you know, and she has great qualities, and they're the qualities you need to play that character, because you need to. I think it's important that you fall in love with her in the film, and it was the gut thing. I just called my wife and said, I've got her, you know, I've got her. This is the one, and it was only for the short at that time, and then, I guess it was just that gut feeling.
Did it help in a way when you were writing the film that you obviously had Olivia in mind? Did that?
Yeah, it definitely did. It definitely did, and it's very interesting because I realise I've written as my second film now, and you do if you've got actors in place, you do visualise, and I'd say that to writers even. You know, I was asked a question once, and they said I've got a film, and you know, and I'm thinking of a Philip Seymour Hoffman. I said, well, think of Philip Seymour Hoffman when you write it. You know, think of whatever you want to think about, and for me it helps the process of visualization, because then you can see them in the situations and in those circumstances, and it seems to help me.
But you obviously thought of Peter Mullen as well.
Peter Mullen was Peter and Olivia were in.
Yeah,
there was no question that the pair of them were going to play those parts. And of course, with Olivia, it's totally new territory for her as an actor.
Yeah.
And you know, she's not a comedy actress. She's an actress who, you know, the majority of her work though has been in comedy. And I wasn't sure, of course, if we could get to those places in this film. You know, because you've all seen it. There's some extreme situations, and I think that we probably had the closest relationship on set, in a way that it was a little bit more, I suppose, my job off camera was to be the voice of Hannah's conscience in a way, you know, or you know, just kind of feeding Olivia Hannah's thought processes, you know, at times, but you know, not all through it. She transformed, you know, she really transformed, and it was incredible to see. And I said it before, but it was an amazing thing, because transformation is, you know, you put muscle on, you take it off, you shave your head, you have a limp, you know, in the film, and people go, oh, it's transformed, you know, you black your fucking tooth and people think it's amazing. Whereas this was a transformation of somebody's spirit, it really was. And by the time we got to scene 111, which is the scene where Peter comes back and he's found James, and he kind of questions her without being, you know, kind of too direct, and she has this breakdown, you know, trying to hang on to the denial for just this little bit longer. And I thought that's a tough scene, you know, we're gonna have to, we'll do it on the last day because we're gonna have to go to some really tough places to do that scene. And I imagined that we'd have all this whole kind of dialogue again. When we shot that scene, I realised just the journey that Olivia had been on, because she was like a tornado in there, you know.
Where did it come from for you, Olivia? Where did Hannah? Where did she come from for you?
Don't know. But the character was already there. You know, she was written so beautifully.
Yeah.
And you get so many scripts. It's really hard to try and, you know, make it look real or as a sort of viable real person. And Hannah, every word she said was so beautifully written. It was easy to make her real, and to imagine, you know, you only have to sort of picture for a moment how miserable it is when the person you love turns against you, and then you know, you don't have to work too hard to get there, really.
But was there research involved?
Yes, I went to talk to two women who work for Refuge that offer lots of help for victims of domestic violence, and they were wonderful, and they just gave me lots of facts and statistics, because I was saying, why don't people go?
Yeah.
And they said it's not as simple as that, and really explained it, and that's one thing I'll never say again. And they gave me a case study to read of one particular situation that was so shocking, and I showed it to Paddy as well. And I suppose that in the back of your mind, that informs it, you know. And it was much worse than anything that you'd ever see on film. And yes, so all of that in the back of my mind, I suppose.
I mean, you couldn't film this case, you know. We've had some great reviews, and one or two people think this is exaggerated and it's kind of porn or whatever, you know. And you know, the case study that Olivia brought to me, you couldn't film it. It would have been a horror movie, and you wouldn't believe that anybody would have been put through that amount of torture. You know, outside of a fucking SS camp or something. You know, it was absolutely foul.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but you know, none of that was used in any way. It all came just before we started filming. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
It's a movie that at its heart is a love story, obviously. You alright?
Yeah, it's all
20
right,
minutes
Chris.
to go.
No, I'm not. 20 minutes. No, you're all right. No, it's at its heart a love story. I mean, but you set up Joseph's a very interesting character. There's a contrast between Joseph and James. James, both of them are men capable of great violence. How did you and Olivia, I guess, justify Hannah's attraction to Joseph but her revulsion towards James, for example? Well, I would say, you know, there was always this history that was never in the film, and we talked about Hannah and James's past and sort of said, you know, these guys were in love once. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
They probably met at college and they were in love, and then they got married, and it was just thinking about when did this start to happen? How subtly did it begin?
Yeah.
You know, did it start with why you're wearing that dress, you know, or why you're wearing that colour, you know, and then I guess over the years it started to escalate to the point where we find it in Tyrannosaur, where it's at the most extreme, you know, horrific proportions. You know, it's strange, because I didn't research anything to write Tyrannosaur. I think you just have to have some kind of understanding of human nature across the board.
Yeah.
You know, just by sitting on the outside and looking in sometimes, you know. And I'd heard one or two things, you know, and I kind of understood how this may or may not, may work. But James was a guy that I couldn't relate to as a man. I couldn't relate to that, but I could relate to Joseph.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, Joseph is someone who wears he's like an open wound, you know, and his anger is in the open, in broad daylight, you know. He'll express it in the most extreme terms, like a caveman, you know. If he can't articulate the death of his friend, then he'll smash his shed down because it has all these connotations and memories, you know. I think at the point of the film with the opening act, I think that's the last act where Joseph starts to kind of awaken, if you like. There's like an awakening in him where he realises that, you know, if he doesn't kind of listen to his higher voice, he's gonna die, you know. And I think he's someone on a journey to try and fix himself. Like he's trying to listen to himself. He's trying not to get involved with the boy across the street, trying not to step in. So he's always, you know, he's always trying to keep himself away from inflicting violence on other people.
Yeah.
After the beginning of the movie, you know, when he threatens a kid in a pub.
Yeah.
Whereas James, it's a whole lot more kind of malevolent and closed doors and curtains and hush. And I think that's very dangerous. In terms of the attraction, I think that at this point in the story, I think that the thing that Hannah represents, you know, if you want to call it the love and the light, is the very thing that James is trying to destroy, you know, is the very thing that Joseph is attracted to in her.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what does Joseph represent for Hannah?
I think it's, as Paddy was saying, it's an honesty in the way Joseph is, that she sees the big difference, you know, that James is everything. He's so nice to everybody. When she says no one will believe me, and that's horrible. And the fact that she can see that Joseph doesn't lie about anything, is open about everything, that's got to be an instant a bit appealing. But she does sense that he's, you know, he's good really, and he's just been dealt a rough hand of it, or had, you know, the wrong influences. But he's a much better person than James, and she knows that straight away.
Paddy mentioned it already, but you're, I guess, better known in this country for Peep Show, Hot Fuzz, for doing comedy. I mean, which is something you fell into in a way. You always wanted to be a dramatic actress. Did you think that opportunity had passed you by?
Yes, and I know I've said this before, but there's people who think there's some kind of a choice in an actor's career path, and there isn't, and or very, very few people get to choose things. And I fell into it, and I loved it, and I've had a ball, and I've been able to pay the bills by giggling all day. And on Tyrannosaur actually was one of the most enjoyable, funny jobs I've ever done, which you wouldn't imagine having to suffer it. Yes, it's sort of just by chance, and once you find your work in one place, and very few people can imagine you moving out of it, so you're just stuck. You have no power. You're at the whim of everybody else, and you have to wait for Paddy, someone with imagination, to come along and give you something else to do.
Yeah.
So there are many other acts out there that have been pigeonholed and want to do something else, but they never get the chance.
Well, how much leeway does your name, Paddy, and your reputation give you? I mean, because I've talked to Olivia and Peter in the past, and they said, they would, call over broken glass for you as a director. But with a crew, for example, you're on your first day on set as a director.
Yeah.
Does your name, the fact that you're Paddy Constantine, does that help at all with the crew in terms of getting your vision across?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's a question for the crew. I think, all right. I've done some films. Maybe that helped in a way, that I had a reputation for one or two films, and people liked those movies, and it may have. But I don't know if I was just blessed with some really good creative people, because my only mantra on the film was, you're not making a little British film.
Yeah.
And I was really dogged about it.
But was that difficult to get across? Because it's a low-budget British film. So.
No, they all got, everybody went out their skin. We shot it in 4 weeks, and everybody just played a blinder. And I was blessed to have them there. They just got on board with it. We had no money. We didn't have a lot of money. We had 750 grand to make Tyrannosaur. And I just had a few rules. I was like, it's not handheld. It's not one of them. you know, and it's not improvised. It's not any of that. We'll make cinema if we can, you know.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Fantastic. Right, so time for you guys to ask questions. So Paddy and Olivia, I see a lot of hands. That's very encouraging. There are going to be handheld microphones running around. So let's go for this gentleman here in the second row.
Hi, first of all, congratulations to you both. I think 2011 has been a bit of a crap year for film. I don't know if people disagree, but that was the best one I've seen this
Thank
year,
you.
hands down.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah, it's cool. I just want to ask Paddy, for a lot of aspiring like film writers, me, like, wanna be is a better word. Just wondering what do you think is the best piece of advice you can give to someone who's writing something as personal as that?
You've just got to write it. You know, it sounds that you've just got to write it, and don't let people throw you off your stride. Just write, have something. At least have something to show. And if it's burning in you enough, you'll write it. You'll make it. And if you want to then get it made into a film, you'll make it happen. You know, there's lots of different rules for lots of different writers, and it's up to you. You know, the kind of script you want to write and the kind of film you want to make. But I didn't really ask anybody for advice when I wrote Tyrannosaur. I just gave it people to read when I'd done it, a couple of people. And I think there's lots of different ways you can approach it. You know, a lot of people write a script and then they get everybody in the room and talk about it. You know, people write in partnerships, but if it's a personal story, then only you can write it. So just get to the end of it. You know, don't keep it in your head, because it's no fucking good there, man. Because there's a lot of great filmmakers in their head. You know, it's no good there, man.
And as a writer writing this person's story, did you feel, I guess, burdened by the structure of screenwriting, by 3 acts and all that stuff? Or
No.
you just let it pour out?
No. And you know, someone commented about this film early on, and then the film's really good, but it lets itself down at the end. The coda lets it down. I'm going, what's that fucking coda, you know? What does that mean? You know, it's like anytime somebody tries to put some kind of language to it, it dies on its arse. I'm not interested in the language of film in that way. Yeah. I'm really not. I'm not interested in the language of writing. I was aware when I wrote the script of certain things that I wanted to avoid. You know, I met an editor early on, and they said, you know, there's a problem with your script. And I said, oh, what's that? And they went, you know, the James and Joseph character should have a fight, you know? And I went, oh, that's really interesting. I'd never fucking seen that before. You know, it's stuff like that. You know, at the same time, you are messing about with people's expectations in a way, and that's interesting.
That's good. Let's have another question.
As actors, obviously you're an actor as well, and obviously your performance was great. How much of your emotional life went into your writing, and how much of your emotional life has gone into your writing, and also how much of your emotional life kind of dictated the shots you kind of made, and a lot of, obviously, you know, the focus pulling and a lot of the shots that, you know, the dolly shots going past. How much of the kind of emotional, your emotional life dictated those choices, like the kind of story you wanted to tell by doing those kind of moves, or was it just a standard kind of technical thing?
You know, I never prepared anything before I went to set. I didn't plan out shots. You know, and there was only a few moments where as I wrote, I specifically knew what I wanted the shot to be. Like when Hannah comes out the house and Joseph's sitting in the armchair, I knew that's what I wanted. That's one example of and how to shoot the scene of the attack when she stands up on the edge of the bed. I knew where I wanted to be and how I wanted it to work. But sometimes it's just a matter of letting the actors take the floor, and then you work your shots out from there. I'm not a great planner, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you're lazy, and you know, like I say, throw the camera about and what have you. I just think that the way I saw it was that you watch the drama, you give them the floor, and then you think about where you're gonna have your shots, and the shot in the charity shop where she comes in and she has the drink in the back, you know, that was that was one thought of just to, so we're kept in the back room and she goes out, focus almost, and she's giving her friend, you know, this kind of her version of the world. You know, we see her two faces of that character in that moment, and those were thought about. That's what I wanted to, you know, portray in it, really. But as far, if you're right, you know, Tyrannosaur's personal. It's not autobiographical, but it's personal, and so things are going to come in and come through the writing. And I don't know if it'll happen again like it did in Tyrannosaur, because I want 10 years away from this. You know, you probably fucking do. You know, but I want some time away from it now. That's how I feel. You know, we've had a couple of weeks and I can't see it anymore. I can't see this thing anymore. And I think because I threw so much in there, and there's so much of my life in it and of my family, that it's sort of hard for me to see it now. I just need to step away for a bit. But the next film, I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe I can't. Maybe I haven't got another film in me. I don't know. I hope not. I hope there's more. But I certainly won't make another film if I feel like I'm going over the same ground. That's just redundant.
But you are working.
I'm not great at ending stuff. I realise I just go.
Which is usually my cue to step in. But you are working on another one, aren't you, right now? You got a script?
Yeah, I've written a ghost story called The Lean In, and it's all right. There's some good bits in it. No, it's all right. So,
what's the hope of that one? Film next year, do you think?
I want to film it next year. Yeah.
There you go. You're not done. You're not done. Right, that's another question. There's in the fifth row there. Keep your hand up, sir. Yeah, thank you. We'll get you guys to the back eventually.
Hi, do you think Shane Meadows' portrayals of social realism has had an effect on your work as a director?
Well, I don't. You know, the thing with me and Shane was, you know, you have to remember we met when we were 17, and part of our attraction was that we came from similar worlds. So, you know, I didn't make Tyrannosaur and set it on the moon, you know. So there's going to be, but at the same time, you know, I didn't make a film about social realism. I'm not interested in it. I made a film about human beings as I understand them, or try to understand them, and that was what interested me. That Tyrannosaur at times stepped out of what was kind of reality, particularly towards the end. It got a little bit more gothic, you know, because I think that's a bit like a ball and chain thing. So, you know, if you look at the work I've done with Shane, and you know, there's gonna be pieces in there because, well, I co-wrote Dead Man's Shoes and what have you. But I think as directors were very different. But I guess that's not going to be seen just yet. That might take a few more movies from me for people to see that a little bit more clearly, because this one is about my terrain, and I guess they're similar terrains in some respects, but I think I'm not interested in social realism, you know. I don't think Ken Loach even likes that, you know, tag, but I don't think I'm saying anything socially, but hopefully there's some kind of truth to this story. That's all I want, really.
Fantastic. Let's go a bit further back. There's yes, there's a lady there. Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank you, because I'm from Grantham in the East Midlands, and before kind of Shane Meadows and you came along with films set in the East Midlands, we didn't have many cultural references apart from Robin Hood, it's a bit out of date, and Margaret Thatcher. So thank you very much. And secondly, it kind of struck me that the two male characters they had some similar traits, and they could almost be the same person at different points in their life. That the husband, sorry, I've forgotten the name, the husband could have become the other guy. What do you think?
No, well, I think that, you know, there's references in this film to Joseph's past, and the fact that he may have knocked his wife about, but I never envisaged that as being the same sort of relationship that James would have with Hannah, or that it would escalate to that kind of level of behaviour. You know, I think that Joseph's was... there's no excuse at any level, but I think I imagine their relationships to be very, very different, you know. And there were bruises, and there was verbal, you know, abuse and all the rest of it. And I think that Joseph feels really very guilty for that, and thinks that that oppression was attributed to her early death, you know, and her decline in her health and everything like that. But he wasn't the kind of guy that did anything to the extent that James does in this film. So there are similarities, but I think they're very different as men, you know.
Fantastic. Let's go right down here. That's my cue. New question, please. Microphone's on its way.
Just doing our best.
Hello, both. Olivia, 2 questions. Did you, for one, ever take Hannah home with you, even though you didn't mean to? And also, were there times, as beautifully as the character was written for you, that you felt that you needed to say to Paddy, actually, I feel Hannah would do it this way, or I feel Hannah would react in this way?
No and no.
Another question.
No, never took her home with me, because it all happened during the scene, and it's incredibly cathartic to cry like that or shout like that, and you never needed to take her home, and it's not. I can't do that anyway. And as Paddy has said before, the last thing you want on a set like that is a method actor. You certainly don't want James to be a method actor. And none of us were. You know, we all, as soon as it was cut, we all went, you know, had a little breather and calmed down and made each other laugh about things. And so, no, didn't have that. And the other bit was, oh yes, no. No, I never said to Pat, well, no, she's from his head, and although you make her your own, she's someone that's formed in Paddy's heart and head, and you know, for years, and he knew what she'd do. There wasn't really a turning that I would disagree with.
It wasn't like that though. It was a collaboration. I would say it was a fighter-trainer thing, and it felt like that to me. You know, it really did. So it was never a moment that we had those kind of discussions, and nor was Olivia either. You know, kind of subservient, if that's right, to it. Like, you know, it was never that. It was a collaboration. You know, there's a photograph of us on set, and we're doing a scene, and we're looking at each other like, and that was our relationship on set. That was how it worked. It was none of that.
You were protective as well, I guess, because I know you've said in the past that you kept a number of takes of the really difficult scenes down to a minute.
About 3 at a time, Chris. I'd only do probably 2 of that attack scene. I didn't want it, you know, and even, you know, as a director, you're sitting there and you're watching and you're going, oh, you know, as a director, you know, the worst thing is that you suggest it and you go, okay, guys, what if this happens? What if, you know, you pull up her legs, because the camera don't move, you pull up her legs, you take off her trousers, throw her legs to the side, what if that? And in your head you're going, fucking hell, how'd you say that? You know, because you don't even think, because I look really great. You know, it's like, it was almost, you know, she was unconscious at that point, semi-conscious, she'd been knocked out. And there was just something about that gesture of the legs and throwing to the side that just made it brutal. And I just, you know, I've said to Olivia, is that okay? And Olivia said, yeah, I said, look, I said, you don't worry, I said, you can have on 6 pairs of knickers, you know, and you can have, I says, get her flesh-coloured tights, get her everything, so her legs are covered, everything's covered, there's no embarrassments, there's no slips, there's no vulnerabilities, and then we can shoot the scene. And that's how we did it, you know, you just got to be mindful of people and their comfort. And people like to go around with their cock out and their tits, you know, they like that as actors, they love it, it's look at me. But some actors aren't actually like that, you know, really. They want to act, but they don't want to get their tits out, you know. And so, if I'm going to do a shot of Olivia in the shower, then I'm saying, you can have your bikini on. Yeah. You can dress as a fucking clown from there. You know, we're not going to see it. You know, you'll be all right.
Oh, right down here, second row.
How long did it take from when you wrote that first short that you gave to Gary Oldman to today when it's been released?
Oh God, I wish Dermot was here. He knows dates. I'd say that when I can't remember. I think I'd written the script and it was 2 years before we got to make it of the feature film.
It's like 6 years.
Yeah, so it was when I can't remember when the short came. I'm so sorry, I'm not very good with dates.
The short, I was pregnant with with the second baby, so that was 4.5 years ago.
So 4.5 years ago, yeah. So then so about 4 years, yeah. So it's been a while. We had the script, and like I said, you know, we were ready to go. I never rewrote it. I just kept it as it was. Excuse me. And then it looked like, you know, we were going to get this 1.5 million, and then it just went, we've lost it. We've lost that. We either make it now for this money or we can't ever make it. And so that's why it got made. So there's a chance it wouldn't have got made. And also, Peter Mullen, I was so dogged that he was the guy for the job, that there was a scenario where Peter couldn't do it. And this is, you know, I'm not going to be able to do it for another commitment that he'd been on for some time. And I said, well, I'll just wait a year then, you know, if you would say you'll do it. That's how important it was for me, because I couldn't think of anybody else to do it. So it was a fair time, you know. I think when we got a BAFTA for the short, and I think the idea was, oh, sound, you know, they'll go and, you know, what's your feature? Come on, sit down. You know, have a fucking croissant, let's get the checkbook out. And they didn't.
Doesn't quite work. Any croissants this time?
I
No
don't know.
croissants coming your way at the moment from
We'll
this way?
see after this opening weekend.
This may be the last question. There's a gentleman who's very eager down here, so this will be microphone.
Thank you very much. I wanted to cheekily ask 2 questions. The first question was, did you shoot it in chronological order to kind of keep the emotional continuity of the story? And the second question was, what kind of cinematic references did you have? I know that Gary Oldman was mentioned earlier, and I thought there was some kind of correlation perhaps between that and Nil by Mouth.
I'd say that I don't think visually it's like Nil by Mouth. I think it looked very different. The only kind of relationship from Nil by Mouth and Gary's point of view that I realised even before I was a filmmaker and I was a photography student watching Nil by Mouth, that this was that was his expression, you know, and that set off something in me. So that's why when I got to work with Gary years ago and his film had such a profound effect on me, I think that's why I was able to open that door to be able to write Tyrannosaur, because of Nil by Mouth. So there was nothing sort of visually or aesthetically that I wanted to take from that film, because it's a movie in its own right, in its own world. And Gary had his own methods of making that film happen. But what was your other question? Chronological. As much as you can I did. But when you're on a 4-week schedule and you know you things happen on a and it's about as much about solving problems as anything else. So as much as we could, we tried to keep it chronological. And if there was something that leapt out, then we'd have to I'd talk to the actors first before anybody else and say, listen, we're going to have to go to this piece. But I would never shoot a section of a scene, you know, like some people do. You know, they'll say, oh, you know, we've got a bit of time, we're going to do this part of the scene, and you go, hang on a minute, you know, that's a bit odd. But never. But we had lots of nice, happy accidents on the process of the film. Nothing could kind of get in the way of it moving along. And I think that goes to having a great crew as well. A really good first AD, a kid called Dan Winch, and he was a real sweetheart. And you know, there was no problem too big. And then little accidents happen. Like we shot the scene with Peter coming out the house with the final dog attack, and I didn't want to shoot it that day, you know, but we just had to. So it was raining, and I thought, I don't really want this shot in the rain, you know, I don't want it reading on film. But anyway, we went with it, and we shot it, and then we come to the shot on the dog, who we shot first. There was a little sweetheart called Bo, you know, he was like an irrepressible lunatic. And he sat in this shot, and we got the camera on him. And the camera was moving forward, and all through the shoot, you know, he's this playful little geezer, you know, and we're all having a knockabout. But this particular day, this dog starts acting really weird, and I start to go, what the fuck, you know, is this dog sensitive? Does it think Peter's going to harm it? You know, like, because Peter comes walking up in the rehearsal, I'm like, he looks frightened. And we're doing this take, and the dog's doing that, and it's stepping back, and it's going, ooh, you know, like, sat like that. And I went, fucking hell, apart from it, like, being an almost stunning performance from a dog. So I go to the handler, and I said, listen, is he all right? I said, because if he can't do this, I said, if he's frightened, then we won't fucking shoot it. You know, and she turned around, she goes, oh, no, he's just being Mardy. He doesn't like getting his paws wet in the rain. That was the trick of the scene. He was just going, so get me out of the fucking rain.
And on that bombshell, that is all we have time for. Thanks, guys, for coming.